this is a bit of a sidebar, and I don't want to take you too far off track, but like, I kind of am personally of the belief that we're all the same. I think we're all, like, whatever brings us to life is the same energy. We're all, if there's a God, an expression of God. All of this appears to me to be an illusion. And I feel like if people just took one giant amount of mushrooms, they would probably see that none of this is like...
But if you're born into it, this is the thing. It's easy for you in your current epistemology to say that. But if this is all you've ever known and everyone around you thinks this way and everyone talks this way, then that becomes the norm. And you're weird to them. You know what I mean?
I'm exceptionally weird.
Yeah.
I'm exceptionally weird. But what I struggle with so much on top of that personal belief that I have is knowing what we know now. So if you took me back a few thousand years ago and we didn't even understand, the fact that we live in a galaxy, let alone a universe, let alone arguably infinite universes, that time and space are completely relative. Like there could be multiple dimensions. Like you're effing around on what Carl Sagan, the pale blue dot floating in this cosmic monster-sized universe. Like this is absurd. And so now that we know this, though, I can't understand why we're still doing it. How are we not looking back going, okay, so they thought that this was the center of the universe here, Earth, and everything was about us, and all of that, we're the center of everything. Now that you know all of this.
But do they? A lot of them are... No. What? Even here in the West, people are now saying we have a flat Earth. I mean...
Very few.
No, I know. But my point is the conspiratorial mind is such, and it's really rife in the Islamic and Arab world especially, that anything the West says is often, they're liars. I'm not saying they believe the Earth is flat. I'm just saying...
Go to the college kids. Go to the kids at Harvard. Go to the kids at Princeton, at these Ivy League schools that are being indoctrinated in this way. I think Mom Donnie was one of those kids. So they're surely getting an incredible education on physics, I mean, math, astronomy. They know these things. At what point do these young, intelligent minds look at this and say, maybe he was schizophrenic?
No,
he's hearing voices.
That's a well-known theory. Yeah.
Is it?
Oh yeah, a lot of people. They think he was. Okay, the theories go from he had epilepsy. From Gabriel was a demon. He was demon possessed. This was actually the go-to Christian explanation of Muhammad. And the epileptic. That's later as people become more secularized because he would fall and foam at the mouth because.
He was epileptic.
But it was understood by Muslims. Because of the power of the angels inside him, and he's about to give us a revelation.
Oh my God, this poor guy's having a seizure.
But let me just finish the two things.
Sorry.
No, it's okay because it's really important.
Okay.
So now he's powerful in Mecca, and all these verses come out, and now it's about warfare. So you have a verse, for example, it's known as the sword verse, and it's one of the latest verses or revelations. Okay. And this one just is, remember we were talking about the Old Testament uses kind of finite language?
Yes.
This is an open-ended command. It says, fight the polytheists wherever you find them, lay in wait, ambush them, kill them, take them as slaves, okay? And also a sword verse, 929, it's the same chapter or surah, says, fight the people of the book, who up until then, during the Meccan phases, the people of the book were understood as Christians and Jews.
Got it.
Where, there's some decent words towards them. And this is what people, again, cherry pick and say, he speaks well of Christians and Jews, okay? But now the final verse is, fight those people until they are subjugated and they pay tribute, which is called jizya, and feel themselves humbled, okay? So, and now here's the thing. If you look at the Quran, what are we going to follow? I mean, there's this verse that's saying peace. There's this verse saying war. So the jurists, and there's complete consensus about this, came up with this idea called its abrogation. all right, which is in Arabic called al-nasikh wal-mansukh, which means this verse abrogates that verse. And so basically, long story short, the newer verses, the final revelations, abrogate all the old ones. And it just so happens that the newest ones is when Muhammad was at his pinnacle of his career, waging jihad on everyone. Okay, but and now we can come to here to today's. Now what Muslims do, so they understand this, but they also use the same exact paradigm, which is, okay, so when I'm weak, I can talk like the Meccan verses because that's what Muhammad did. But once circumstances change, I can do what Muhammad did, which is now I can go on the offensive. And I'll end this with a final little cute anecdote, which I share often from the Library of Congress. When I used to work there were many Muslims. I used to work in the African Middle Eastern division with Arabic books and other books. And there was a Muslim man there, and we were actually on friendly terms. You know, we kind of respected each other. He knew what I was about, and I knew and he was what you would call radical, okay?
Oh gosh.
But you wouldn't know it. I knew it because I have an eye for that, okay?
Of course, yeah.
And we would talk often, and sometimes in the cafeteria we would debate Islam, in a friendly debate. And I mentioned all this.
There was such a thing, by the way. Well, I want to get to that. Please, sorry, I won't take you off.
I'll finish it real quick. Yeah.
No, don't be quick. Take as much time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're in the cafeteria and we're talking. I'm telling him what I just told you. I'm like, because he's telling me, no, Islam's peace, and he quotes the Meccan verses. So I'm like, yeah. And what about the Medinan verses? And aren't you aware that in as much as Muhammad's circumstances changed, so did his tactics? Okay. And he's like, no. But I kept pushing it, and finally he just smiles at me and goes, "What do you want? I'm in Mecca." Because I'm in the United States and I'm weak and I'm outnumbered. So of course I'm talking about the Meccan verses. You understand the significance?
I do.
Yeah. Okay. And I think there's a lot of Muslims who think that way and who will talk about the Meccan verses because they are following the prophet's example, which is when he was weak. Yeah. Islam is not suicidal. For all the draconian aura about Islam, it's actually very pragmatic. And so you, as a Muslim polity, must wage war on your neighbor if they're weak. If they're not, and it's not advantageous for you and you don't have a good chance of winning, then don't. Okay? So, the popular idea that we have of like all jihadis are psychotic and just ready to blow themselves up, which exists, of course.
Oh, yeah. Everyone says they invite death. They love death. They don't have our Western...
The more dangerous ones are the majority who are smart and bide their time and are involved in what's called creeping Sharia and Islamist machinations and who use the system against the West and who cry Islamophobia. They're the ones who are really smart. But the ones, to me, ISIS, I always call them very refreshing because for all their atrocities, at least they really call it out. They actually, so Al-Qaeda, I was telling you, that, was involved in this massive dissembling campaign, telling the West grievances, but then telling Muslims hate them. ISIS comes up, writes an article and says why we are fighting you and why. And the first thing they say is because we hate you, because you're an infidel, and it has nothing to do with what you've done to us. So I find that a little bit refreshing because they're at least honest. But most Muslims are, a little more strategic than that, and they're engaged in that entire panoply of strategies that I mentioned.
All right, guys, if you like this clip and you want to watch the full episode, click here. And if you want more content like this, you can subscribe to the show by clicking here.